Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, distinguished guests, here with us in person and joining us online from around the world. Welcome to the 2025 Budapest Global Dialogue. This forum, co-organized by the Hungarian Institute of International Affairs and the Observer Research Foundation, convenes global policymakers, thought leaders, and experts to address the dynamics of an increasingly multipolar world. Over the next 3 days, our sessions will explore topics including transatlantic relations, the revival of national sovereignty, the emergence of new economic compacts, regional dynamics, and much more. We are delighted to welcome more than 100 distinguished speakers from across the globe to discuss these topics. To formally welcome you to this year's Budapest Global Dialogue, let us now hear from Gladden Pappin, President of the Hungarian Institute of International Affairs, who will tell you a little bit more about this special event and how it came about.
If you don't remember where you were 10 years ago today, you could be forgiven for thinking that this conference isn't occurring on an important anniversary. But since Trump's famous descent down the golden escalator on June 16th, 2015, we have been locked in a global discussion of whether the Trump era is the exception, a brief challenge to otherwise functioning global norms at best, or at worst, a threat to the stability of all the post-World War II institutions, or whether it was the post-Cold War era, with its lofty expectations of an ever-expanding liberal democratic stability, that was instead the exception to the norm of realist, interest-driven politics in global affairs. Here in Europe, the answer given by European Union elites was that 2016 was the exception that would soon see a return to norms. This view has also empowered them to tighten the screws on challenges to the dominance of the post-Cold War elite in Europe. But whether you like it or not, 10 years after that disruptive moment in American politics, it's clear that the challenge was not a momentary exception. Many political positions, many topics, many possibilities that were not on the menu in 2015 now are. From the importance of national strategy in industrial development, which was sidelined under neoliberalism, to the role of national interests in border security, as well as in larger questions of security architecture, to questions about the conditions of social stability, as radical upheaval of norms has begun to prove too costly to sustain. The Budapest Global Dialogue was born between the Hungarian Institute of International Affairs and the Observer Research Foundation of India, precisely because both Hungary and India have a long-standing interest in the nature of international institutions, as well as in their own security and development. The pillars of this conference track the very issues that have been neglected in global forums and international discussions over the last 10 years. These are, first, the return of sovereignty in an age where supranational concerns had been thought paramount and had been assumed to be more reliable and more fair. Second, it's about a new Europe for a new America. For no matter the discomfort that it may cause in some quarters, America is reinventing itself. It's reforming its key institutions to adapt to the new global challenges. These include even reforming the transatlantic institutions. The third topic is the West redefined for a new global order, one in which the rise of India, the challenge of China, the loss of faith in the liberal international order, and the return of great power competition are necessitating a new exploration of what the West is, what it has to offer, and how it will compete. Fourth, as the global competition heats up, Europe's role in emerging domains is coming back into focus. as European energies have been directed primarily toward the war in the neighborhood, whereas in many places, even in our own Western Balkan neighborhood, the promise of Europe appears to be fading, and this challenges Europe standing globally as well. Fifth, the global economy is becoming more connected in some respects and more bloc-like in others, and this establishes the last pillar of our conference about nations in the age of connectivity, where the question is, which country is a bridge, who is a player, and who is a bystander? Accordingly, it's my great privilege to welcome you, including our 120 speakers, delegates, and moderators from over 40 countries, dozens of diplomats, and almost 400 registered guests to this second and really the first full edition of the Budapest Global Dialogue. We believe that Budapest affords a unique place to discuss these topics that have often been neglected, but which are essential to forming strong approaches to the problems that are emerging today. Finally, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Observer Research Foundation for their invaluable partnership, and to all of you for joining us at this important conversation. So please enjoy the conference, enjoy Budapest, and we're very glad that you took the time to participate with us. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us at the first full edition of the Budapest Global Dialogue, something that was born out of a conversation that started, I think, 10 or 11 months ago. It has already yielded an intense roundtable in December, and now we embark on a much more open forum where we seek to instigate conversations that respond to the pressing questions of our times, questions detailed by Gladden in his intervention around sovereignty, around the new foreign policies that different geographies need to adopt to respond to our times. How do the developed and the emerging world integrate and engage with each other? What is the role of Europe in all that's happening? And of course, connectivity that is both today seen as a threat, but also as a catalyst for the goals and aspirations and dreams that individuals, nations, and societies continue to strive for. The next panel that is going to follow this very short introductory session is largely going to respond to those big questions. And we are going to be joined with some of the best minds from China, from US, from Europe, and India. And we are going to pose to them some of those fundamental issues that now need at least a conversation that can yield to pathways that converge, not necessarily solutions that are adopted and embraced by all. And I think today that journey must begin, where without finding the truth, we must certainly find the pathways leading us to a future that is shared by all. In this time that we live in, everything that you believe is true, and the opposite is equally true. And in that sense, it is futile for any one argument to prevail. In fact, we must take the energy of diversity, of discord, of dissent, and help shape a future that is enriched by the heterogeneity of views and by the diversity of imaginations. And I think leadership today is about taking this kaleidoscope of aspirations and knitting together a patchwork of institutional arrangements that can cater both differentially and collectively. And that is what we were able to achieve, but for a brief moment in the last century before it all fell away. The centripetal and the centrifugal forces, as my chairman is prone to quote, are working on societies and countries at the same time. And we have to, in many ways, balance those two forces to be able to move linearly, to be able to move forward and to make progress. But here is my view of the world as it exists today as I close my thoughts, that we are in the middle of four large collisions, crashes. The first, of course, is the clash of oceans and continents. One world is perhaps not going to happen anytime soon. We are still going to be defined by regions and by our experiences and by our cultures. Different maritime geographies, different continental geographies have different approaches to how we organize ourselves, and we will have to live with these collisions that are happening now between these different continents and different maritime geographies. I was born to a country which had an ocean named after it, the Indian Ocean. I'm now living in a geography which has to deal with the term Indo-Pacific. The Indian Ocean is passé, the Indo-Pacific is the buzzword, and suddenly the cultural, economic, and political dynamics at play in my neighborhood are very different to the one I was born to. And this is happening around the world. We can straddle the map and we can talk about this. The second big crash that is happening is between technology and reality. And that crash is more definitive than we thought it would be. Our lives are shaped by both. There is no digital, there is no real. We are all living hybrid realities. The digital infects what happens on the streets, and the streets use the digital to shape the future. And in that sense, this crash is very, very compelling, and we cannot ignore it. The third, of course, is between planet and people. And of course, whether you believe in the climate debate or you don't is not the issue. The issue is resources are limited. There is a competition for it. Energy is sought by all, and we need to provide it. And there are metals and food and other constraints that are beginning to shape how politics is being organized. We have seen all of this in the last 5 years, from the pandemic to the food crisis to the supply chains that were seen to be enabling all of us. And in many ways, the resource, the clash between the planetary capabilities and the planetary specificities versus the regional requirements is now beginning to organize how we look at the future. And finally, of course, the most important one, which is changing our local and domestic politics, is the clash between the street and the elite. It is no longer the highbrow and the high-thinking individuals that can fashion a world that everyone will sign on to. Streets using technology, streets using the power of the collective are now able to become important global actors. And they are able to leave a mark on our policy-making landscape like never before. And in that sense, our politics and our international politics both have to relate and work with the streets. It's something that our institutions were not designed for. They were insulated from the irrationality of the streets. It does seem that the streets have greater rationality than we gave them credit for. And it's perhaps time to co-opt them and to work with them. And political leaders who are able to actually use the power and the imagination and the creativity in the masses that are today more eager to participate are going to do better in the world of tomorrow. But in the midst of these four collisions, we have to respond to those big questions, the world order questions. We know that the one that existed no longer exists. The one that is going to come in its place doesn't exist either. And in that sense, we have the blackboard, we have the drawing board in front of us, and we have to shape a future, and we have to design it ourselves. It is a do-it-yourself IKEA store. We'll have to design the future. No one else is going to come and do it for us, and perhaps conversations are good places for that process to begin. So I wish you all 2 days of excellent conversations, of new friendships, and of building a community that can disagree and yet walk together towards a future that we all share. Thank you for joining us at the Budapest Global Dialogue. And thank you, Gladden, your team, Lila and Dorina, and everyone else who put this together. Thank you to your Foreign Minister, Peter Sijarto, for his leadership in putting this together. And of course, the driving force, Balázs Orbán, who's going to speak to us at some point tomorrow. So I wish you all 2.5 days of intense discussions, debates, and disagreements. All the best. Thank you so much.